guys, welcome to Will Tune for Tacos. I'm Eric, and today we'll be working on this 1997 Subaru Impreza. For some of you that have followed my Facebook or Instagram, there's been a lot of details and information about this car on there, but the basics of it, since this is new to YouTube, is it's a 1.8 liter, it's the stock motor that came out of this car. It has well over 200,000 miles on it, the motor is untouched. We put a Haltech Elite EMS in it in order to control everything, and on the motor it made about 125 horsepower. It's running methanol fuel and decided it wasn't quite fast enough, so I put about 100 shot of nitrous on there, and that worked okay for a little while, but we started having some issues getting the nitrous in the motor, so I decided I was tired of playing with it and we're just going to put a turbo on it. So that's the plan for today, but first we got to eat some tacos. So, it's time for a turbo. Got to take the old headers out. We're going to actually end up probably removing the whole exhaust. I was going to do a new subframe, but I don't have it, so we're going to notch this subframe so that that turbo up pipe can go through. And got a little bit of a problem. We got the header and my radiator don't quite mesh. So, time to figure that out. So after very, very little deliberation, I've decided I'm just going to raise the radiator up about that far, and hopefully the hood will still shut, and if it doesn't, we'll just trim this portion of the hood off. All of this is coming out anyway, and the manifold's going back around the other direction as it is, so I believe there will be plenty of room to make all that happen. We want to get the nitrous pill out of here. We don't lose it. They like to fall away. So this is amazing. This is 100 horsepower right here. You know, it's remarkable what can be done with such a small little thing. So yeah, we have just a good old-fashioned dryer duct, literally duct taped in. Eventually I'll probably rivet that in so that it's a little more secure, but everything is pretty temporary in this setup. You know, as it's constantly changing. Literally every time I race the car I make massive changes, so eventually it'll be complete. Turbo's going to go right about there, and it's going to boogie. So here we go, we're going to raise the radiator up. For now I'm just going to loosen it so that it's out of the way. Any excuse you have to use a hatchet while working on the car is a good one. So we're going to split this board right down the middle here. Perfect. Just wanted this little block to put under the radiator in order to hold it up temporarily, not permanent. So we got a wood block holding the radiator up now, which gives me pretty decent amount of room to pull that header up. I actually think what I'm going to do, having pulled this up, I see that this lower radiator mount sits on the lower core support pretty well, and I think this side will too. The center I might have to trim. I don't know if I can get a shot of that. Up in here there's the radiator core center support. I may have to trim that, but I think I can get this one through up here as well if I just drill 2 holes, and the radiator will be mounted, and it'll actually kind of have a little bit of V-mount to it. All right, there's my radiator overflow, some Peace Tea. That's good and orange. There you go. Georgia peach. Figured I was pretty lucky. It's always good to have a little bit of peach tea, some peace. So now I've got room to put this header up and see how bad our clearance is going to be for the pipe section. We're going to have to notch the subframe here, or at least go hammer time on it. So we'll get to that in a second. Alright, safety squints engaged. There we go. So we'll get you a camera here. You can see the up pipe fits through that slot we made. It's resting on it right now, but once it's bolted up, it should actually have a little bit of clearance. Alright, so now it's time for the meat and potatoes. By potatoes, I mean turbochargers. So this is a Precision 6266 Gen 2. It's the 7-blade, big exhaust housing, which is what we're after. So I'm going to just test fit this guy, make sure it's going to fit, and clock the compressor accordingly. Of course it's used because we're not classy enough for new parts on this build, but it is an excellent turbo capable of up to around 700 horsepower. Probably actually a little bit more than that if we wanted to push it, but way more than this motor is going to be able to handle. So, trusty used V-band clamp that will probably break the first time we put it in. It's going to sit there just like that, and it's going to make some power. So we're going to install this guy real quick. Every day you see a turbo that's literally bigger than the motor, but there it is. A lot of people, while I'm doing this, I'll just kind of talk, you know, they see the wiring in this car is still, for the most part, exposed. I haven't really finished anything on it. Been too busy driving it, and that's kind of the glory of it. Like, it works, you know, everything's so temporary that to finish something would make it permanent, and because of how temporary I feel like everything is on this project, I don't really see the need at this point to, you know, fully loom all the wires. There's, you know, the main portion of the harness is loomed, and some of the smaller harnesses around it are loomed, just to make sure that they stay out of the way and don't get too hot, don't melt, don't hit the fire, etc. Don't get rubbed through. But primarily, the purpose, you know, of getting it all loomed up is to make it look clean and be, you know, complete, finished. And at that point, once it's, you know, I commit to it being done, it's kind of like that's the route we're gonna go. I feel like the next step is we're gonna have to flip the manifold back around so that we can see where everything needs to live exactly. Is the turbo big enough?
What's going to break first? It's going to be the inner engine on this car.
Head gasket's more likely.
Just going to lift it.
Yeah, because they're stock 200 and something thousand miles. So
It's overheated.
head gaskets are actual cylinder liners.
Yeah.
Those are.
I think the drivetrain will outlast all that.
Oh no, the drivetrain will break probably the first time I go out.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That was the
I thought you meant in the motor.
Oh, yeah.
Drivetrain, I've got spares, so it's
One axle per run or something.
yeah. I don't know. Let's see. Yep, we're probably gonna have to leave the nitrous on it.
5, headline 6.
Yeah, you know, I bet with about a 50 shot, it should do all right. Just enough to get it up. Because I mean, you figure if it's 50 shot, that makes it like a 175 on the motor.
Yeah.
175 horse motor will spool this turbo because that's all a 2.5 makes. So look at that. It's just gonna go like that. I'm running methanol, so I don't need an intercooler. If I run into inlet temps, I can put a 5th injector in the pipe. All right, so we're getting pretty close to having the turbo completely installed in the car. Two things that we have to address is the pipe connection from the turbo to the throttle body. Now, originally I'd wanted the turbo to sit more like this, but the downpipe that I have would have to be modified, which is fine for this motor, except if we switch to a 2.5 liter motor in the future, the heads are bigger, the block is girthier, everything's a little bit different, and having it like this, the intake manifold would be right in the way. So we're definitely going to want to keep it rotated how it was on the other car, which is going to put it right about here. The downside to that is now we have a very strange bend into the throttle body. So that's going to require a little bit of finesse in order to make this and that connect to each other. I'm kind of debating flipping the manifold back around. That's the great fun thing about these kind of projects is you don't really have a perfect plan, even if you think you do. There's always something else that comes up and throws a wrench in the works, as it were. So we'll figure it out. Yeah, so that's going to take a little bit of doing to try to figure out exactly how this is going to route. And yeah, the other issue is I need the oil feed, which is easy. I'm going to come down from the original oil pressure switch, which basically just tells the dash if the oil pressure is low and blinks the oil light at you. So I'm going to run a -3 feed. Actually, it looks like that's a -4 on there. So we'll run a -4 feed from there to the top of the turbo. And as far as the oil return from the turbo, this motor doesn't have a good return on the head like the turbo heads do. So I'm just going to, unfortunately, have to pull the oil pan and weld a bung onto it in order to return the oil. So that'll require an oil change off of fresh oil. And, you know, I might actually try to save the oil because the oil only has, you know, like 4 or 5 passes down the drag strip on it. We'll see what the oil looks like when it comes out. It'll probably be chalky because the car is running methanol fuel, which tends to gum up oil pretty quick. So it may be time to change it anyway. We'll just have to see. All right, so sometimes, for no reason it makes any sense at all, you look at things a little bit different and suddenly they make sense. So originally I was looking at doing the turbo clocked this way and trying to make a little squiggle, which was going to be really difficult. It was going to require a lot of fabrication, very tight bend, not a lot of room for clamps. I was probably going to have to actually weld an elbow to here, 90 over, and then another 90 and come around 180. It would have been just pretty crazy. But what I rethought was the hood actually sits pretty high back in the back of the engine bay. It's about to here. So if I rotate this guy like so, and then I add a 90-degree 2.5 to 2 3/4 coupler because the throttle body's 2 3/4 and the turbo outlet's 2.5. This actually clears the hood. I already tested it. I've got the light up here, so I'm not going to do it at this very second. But I have this handy piece of 2 3/4 tube that if I insert like so and trim about here, it's going to come very, very close to being exactly, let's just grabbing a pen here. It's going to come very close to being exactly where I want it. So again, if I look here, I'm going to have to turn that a bit. Sorry the video cut out, guys. Turn the light back on. So this is how it ended up. So yeah, the battery actually died on my camera. So the pipe here, we come down here and then right in. So I'm gonna have to kind of relocate a little bit of stuff. I'm gonna move this coil pack bracket, actually probably just up to this point here, set it up a little bit higher. I think my wires are long enough. If not, I have another set. I need to relocate the fuel filter itself. I'll tighten that just so it's, well, let me leave it real loose so that way if I accidentally prime the fuel pump, it'll let me know real quick by spraying methanol everywhere. But yeah, so I'm going to have to move the fuel filter, probably just move it over a little bit this way. Currently this fuel rail doesn't quite fit because that line's too tight. Having reversed the manifold, well, put the manifold back to how it normally is, a couple of the fuel lines are just a little too short, but it's all small things. It's going to take a little bit of buttoning up. I probably won't record all of that. The next video will be oil lines and such. So stay tuned, guys. This is probably it for this video. I'm going to put this all together, put it up on the internet so people can see what's going on with the car. I like this design better with this pipe. It gives me a lot more room for potential activities, like if I want to run a blow-off valve, you know, I could put a big blow-off valve here, or put my nitrous jet, you know, like right about there. Actually, probably, well, yeah, right about there, maybe on the bottom side. Potentially a fifth injector if I run out of fuel. These are 850s now. I have a set of 1300s I could put in if I need them. This is methanol fuel, so it uses a considerable amount more than pump gas, actually more than twice as much to make the same amount of power. The cool thing about methanol, and the reason why we're not running an intercooler, is with methanol, because there's so much extra fuel going in the cylinder, down to, I mean, as rich as 3 parts of air for 1 part of methanol. So that's, you know, a quarter of your entire charge is fuel. The fuel itself carries a lot of oxygen. The methanol I'm running actually has a little bit of nitro in it too, you know, just for fun times. Makes a little bit more power. It's called a VP Racing M5. So that's going to cool the charge considerably, which is why we don't need an intercooler. As far as a blow-off valve, not needing one, I'm really only planning on running, you know, between 7 and 10 pounds. If I turn the boost up, I will definitely put one on, as it'll protect it. But at such a low boost level, I'm not sure that I'm going to need one. It also helps not drop boost on shifts to not have a blow-off valve. It is a little bit hard on the turbo, but again, at 7 to 10 pounds, probably not enough boost to cause any damage. But I might put one on there. I haven't really decided yet. You know, there's things like that just kind of nickel and dime the budget to death. And the budget on this build is pretty small. So, you know, trying to get by with what I already had, a lot of spare parts. If I find a blow-off valve that I want to use, I'll definitely weld it on there and get it going. But yeah, this is essentially how it's going to look. Again, I'll clean up a lot of stuff, but still just really basic, just trying to put some boost in the motor. I'll use the nitrous to get this giant turbo to spool, and you know, only really looking to make, you know, 300 to 350 horsepower. We'll see where these head gaskets explode. I'll probably, in all honesty, run it at like 250 for the first pass, and then maybe, you know, just kind of see where it lands. I think, you know, at 10 pounds or so, we should be up around there with a little bit of nitrous. So it won't take much to get this little car going fast. It's really light. It's only 2,260 pounds. How it sits, I just added probably about 30 pounds of weight with this turbocharger setup. However, I did pull off a much heavier exhaust and put a much lighter exhaust on it, so the weight's probably a wash, which is kind of the idea. I'll probably scale it again once it's all put together. But yeah. Thanks for checking out my video, guys. Stay tuned and we'll have another one up fairly shortly that has the completion of the turbocharger conversion on this, as well as some other stuff. and then we'll be headed to the racetrack, so I can't wait to show everybody that. Thanks for watching.